Well, hello, dear listeners, and welcome back to the Reforming Nerdom podcast. I am your host, Jordan Cecile, and I am joined, as always, by the one and the only P. Nate, aka Pastor Nate, aka Nathaniel P. Wright. Nate, how you doing?
I am doing great. I am extremely excited for this conversation now that I've finally caught up and I'm no longer being shunned by you guys. Both Jordan and Chris, because I was behind on this book, had done the shun, but now I've been unshunned, which is good. And today we get to talk about it. I always just love having Chris on too, because like in all honesty, you and I are nerds, but like Chris is the biggest nerd.
Yeah, I'm an elite nerd. So there's like levels to this. So
yeah,
we are also
catching up though.
I'm trying.
We're also Lego joined. He does has him pretty close to you.
Okay, so first off, we're joined also by the one and the only Chris Pooterson. Chris, how are you?
I'm great. I feel like Nate has more names than Viz at this point. So it's like I know. I just got all of them. Like,
it's getting close, but on
P,
on
Nate,
that
Elder P, like on the whole, it's insane. He's got tons.
On that Lego thing, real quick, for Black Friday, I bought a set that I had my eye on for probably like 2 years now, and it is the DeLorean from Back to the Future. And I've wanted it for a really long time. Big nostalgia because Back to the Future is one of my favorite movies. But it was a huge sale, so I bought it. And so far, it has been the best building experience of any Lego I have ever done. So I'm really happy about that.
What makes it better?
Just because it's not a Technic set, which Technic is where they have a lot of the moving pieces.
Yep.
But because it's a car and it actually moves, there's a lot of just like moving parts. So it's actually really complicated. There's some parts where I actually have to like think a little bit, and you have to hold things in spots to get it in. So it's a fairly challenging build because you have to account for all like the wheels moving and everything. And it's been a blast. So
nice.
I've been having a lot of fun with that. So I do have to probably pause on buying Lego because I am getting to the very real point of not having anywhere to put it. And I can't really have like a full Lego room. I don't think Mel would be okay with that, as much as that would be sweet.
Can I make a suggestion?
If it leads to me get more Lego, yes.
I think what you should do, and I know it would be like delicate, like you gotta, but like, is there any way to get like steel wire and hang a couple, especially like the Millennium Falcon and stuff over your pool table?
Ooh.
Yes.
Well, there's an idea.
I know.
Okay.
It's a good one.
All right. Well,
I don't know. I think Nate knows this. I used to work with the guy who had the third biggest Lego collection in the world. And he lives here in London. He spends a crazy amount of Lego. I won't say his name or where it is, but he has at the company I used to work for, he has he had at one point, I don't know if he still does, the entire warehouse basement set up with Lego. And he had ships hanging from wires, like, because he had the full on basically Battle of Endor that he had made like full on, because he entered competitions, right? So I think he had something like 3.3 million pieces of Lego or something like insane. Like
so off air, I would really like you to tell me who this person is, because I think you and I would get along well.
Yeah, you probably would actually. And I will off air, but I don't know if I get sued if I told him anything. I'm like,
there's a kid. Well, I don't know. I guess he's a kid to me. James at our church, who I found out at the Worldview thing, Nate, who apparently he's huge into Lego. He actually has a Lego room. I don't know how much he does it anymore, but when he was younger, he did, and he actually built like custom stuff. So, which is pretty cool. But
anyway, can I ask a question about the Lego? So I would still probably have action figures and stuff if I was like brave enough to broach the subject with my wife. Like, how did you sell Mel on the idea of like, hey, I know we're married and we have children, but I also want to buy toys and like put them in a room. Like, how did you make that switch?
See, it wasn't really a conversation. I just exercised the role of rulership in my home, and I just did it.
This is just how it is, baby.
Now, do I hear about like, hey, do you really need to buy more Lego? Yes, there are times, but it's like when it's such a good deal, because with buying Lego, there's like the cost per piece is like a big factor in it, right?
yeah.
There are certain sets where it's like that's just not worth it. So funny enough, Melissa's now at the point where there is a set that she wants me to buy, but I had to tell her I'm not buying that because the cost per piece is way too high. So when it goes on sale eventually, we probably will buy it. But for right now, it's like I had to say no because it's like, no, it's so outrageously overpriced. It's the Hogsmeade Village. It's like the newer one, and it's really cool. But it's everybody who talks about Lego says how crazy overpriced it is. And because my thinking was it has like snow on the rooftops and everything. So we were thinking that could be our like one of our Christmas things that we set up every year, and with the kids build the set, like tear it down at the end of the season, build it again, and it's just like a family tradition. So we want to do it. It's just for the number of pieces for $500. It's like there's no way I would buy it when for an extra like $100 you get Rivendell, which is like the set of all sets for Lego fans. Like it is one of the best.
So here's the real thing. So obviously here at Reforming Nerdom, we're trying to give you good content. We're trying to, improve your commute where you get to listen to nerdy stuff from a Christian perspective. And because of all that, we ask people to sign up for Patreon and support the show, and we try to give them value. But what we haven't done, Jordan, is told people that if you sign up for Patreon, you have exclusive access to Jordan, who can help train and equip you to make your wife okay with you buying toys. Like, why didn't we package that? That's one of the tiers now is a master class by Jordan on how to make your wife okay with letting you spend hundreds of dollars on toys.
And
there
not
you
only
go.
make her okay with it,
I just
get her
build
to
our
help.
patron.
Like,
Yeah, no, you know what? I feel like there's a consulting business in there somewhere. And I mean, I've already helped our listeners figure out how to do a life hack with getting Audible for almost nothing. And just update on that.
Yeah.
I'm in my new cycle of all of those things. And so 3 of my 4 accounts have sent me my 3 Audible credits for $3. So now I'm doing that again. So
And did
now
I
all of a
forward you
sudden
the cease and
I've got-
desist letter from Audible?
No,
how do I
that
not
just
know
goes
about
into
this?
junk mail. If you don't, I think I've told you about it. Have I not told you about?
No, off air. You got
Oh,
to you got to teach me how to scam the system here. So
No. This is a tip for all of our listeners. This is free Christian nerd consulting 101. So if you have your Audible account and you cancel it within probably a month to a month and a half, they are going to send you an email that says sign up now and get 3 credits for $3. So like $1 per credit for 3 months. You do that, cancel it again, and then another month and a half or so, they're going to send it to you again. And then you stack that by then having 4 Audible accounts, because for some reason they let you use the same credit card on multiple accounts. So now I have 4 Audible accounts all on the same credit card, and I only pay $1 per month for any book. So $3 a month and I get 3 Audible books.
Jordan's beat the world right now at the moment. Like,
Just level up.
You know what? I will be honored when they eventually end that, because it means they probably listened to this podcast, and then that's a win for all of us. And everybody.
They have your face up in like their staff meetings where they're just like, how can we prevent these kinds of people?
I mean, it's weird.
Jordan's the picture on Audible's wall of like, don't feed this guy. Like he's.
I don't know what it is with Audible. Like they're weirdly generous. You and I were talking with Ben just this last weekend, and they just like let you refund books, Audible books, as long as you don't take advantage of it and just do it every single time. But like without even like asking you any questions, you just go in there and be like, yeah, I want to refund this, and they just do it and they give you another credit.
Yeah, interestingly, I didn't know that. Ben told me that. And because he and I both got duped into buying the same Ransom trilogy. So there's an Audible thing where you can buy the whole Ransom trilogy for 1 credit, which I'm always looking for those kinds of deals, right? All Chronicles of Narnia for 1 credit, and but the last That Hideous Strength is like an audio theater kind of gig. And they cut out a bunch and whatever, because I think they actually did it for radio. So they cut out a bunch because it's only like 2 hours or something like that. So I listened to Out of the Silent Planet and Paralandra. And then when I got to that, I was like, oh man. So I returned it having listened to, 20 of the 22 hours. And yeah, no problem.
There you go.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I don't take advantage of it. Like, I know there's some books that I bought on Audible and I listen to like a bit, but I haven't returned them. So maybe I should do that. I always feel weird about doing stuff like that, but
I've done it a few times, and it's which has been nice for a book that if sometimes I'll go look because we have a few different audiobook apps. So one that we pay for, which Claire uses all the time, is Everand.
yeah,
Which
I've
is
had
like
that.
yeah, it's like a subscription thing, and there's a lot of kids audiobooks on there, so we pay for that. But then I also have the Libby app and Hoopla, which are linked to our libraries. And sometimes they don't have them there, so I'll buy the audiobook and sometimes it comes up. So then by the time I get to listening to it, I'll go and check and it's like, oh shoot, it's there for free now, so I return the credit. But the one time it didn't work and it didn't give me a reason why was I was returning the first Wheel of Time. I didn't realize that shoot, what's the guy? Kramer? Is that the guy who does Stormlight Archive? The guy who does most of
The narrator.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. What's his the
Michael
husband and
Kramer, I think,
wife.
maybe.
Yeah, and his wife. I didn't realize they did a version of it. So the one I had bought, I think, was a newer version of it that was a woman doing the narrating. And I just didn't. I mean, there's other times where I've had women narrators for audiobooks, and it's fine. But I just didn't like this woman. I didn't find she did a great job. So I tried to return it, and it wouldn't let me, and it didn't even give me a reason. So I just used another credit to buy the Michael Kramer one and that made it actually bearable. I would have actually DNF'd Wheel of Time if I had to keep listening to that woman. I really didn't enjoy it. I did finish the first Wheel of Time, which so far I'm like meh on it. It is, there's so many other good books that I've read over the last 2 years that it's like Wheel of Time is probably on the low end of the ones. And it's like to think that there's 13 others that I have to read in order to get through that. It's like, oh boy, this is going to take me a decade because there's no way I'm reading more than one or two of these a year.
Yeah, it does improve dramatically come book
Mm.
like about halfway through book 2. And the
It's
first book's like a Tolkien ripoff, right?
Yeah. Oh boy. Shockingly, I was blown away by it's like, oh, so a fellowship going on an adventure and this like one person, you didn't really even try. Now, okay, that's a good pivot to we're talking now about Strength of the Few, which some would accuse Will of the Many. So listeners, today, if you've gotten this far and you haven't gathered from the title of the episode, we're going to be doing our full like a review and a bit of a spoiler cast of Strength of the Few, book 2 of the Hierarchy series. But that was a thing that actually kind of came up in our Discord this week. Ben is finally reading it, which, I mean, took him long enough, but he was commenting that in the Will of the Many that it's like, oh, it's pretty much, I forget the books he said, but it's pretty much this, and that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, Will of the Many really doesn't bring in too many new ideas. Like he is boring from a lot of stuff. Like if you read Red Rising, Chris, like it's very much Red Rising, Hunger Games, Harry Potter elements. Like there's definitely, he's borrowing tropes from other books, but I think as we discussed last time, I think he does it better than most of those other ones. So if he did it worse, then it's like, yeah, knock him for it. But it's like he took the ideas and I think made them better.
Exactly.
But so why don't we, I guess actually quickly, we're talking audiobooks. Nate, you listened to this exclusively. Is that right?
I did. Yep. I didn't buy a physical copy.
Okay. And Chris, you read it physically only, right? Okay. So I
Uh,
did both.
I read it physically fully, but then I did get it on Spotify and listen to the last chapter again.
Okay.
Because as everybody who's finished it knows, you want to catch what's happening in the last chapter.
So I actually own, so I did the physical and the audiobook as I was reading it, but then as we were in our Discord and then we have another group chat with just people from our church, I also bought the ebook because there were things where I was like, man, I want to be able to search and find specific things and I don't know exactly where it is. So you can do a keyword search in the Kindle version. So, which was really helpful because there was a few things where I'm like, okay, I need to go back here. Where is it? I don't know. It'd take me forever. So I bought the audio or the ebook for that as well. So Nate, did you, I guess even just talking about the audiobook, how was your listening experience to this one? Do you like the narrator? I think his name is Ewan Morton. I think
Yeah,
that's
I actually I love the narrator. I thought he did a really good job. Coming off of like obviously I just read Stormlight, which I was behind all you guys on that, and I find that narrator is one of the best I've ever heard. And
yep.
so at first it was a bit of a transition. It was a bit of a it was a bit of a downgrade, but as I got used to him, I think he did a great job. He does a really good job of, again, just that slightly different voice for everybody. Yeah, I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. I really like him. I would say so far my top narrators for books, Michael Kramer. I forget the guy's name for the Terminal List, Chris. I don't know if you've listened to any of the Terminal List or if you just physically
No, I
read.
just read them.
He has the same guy. He's like perfect for that book. But then whoever the guy is for Sun Eater, I really like the Sun Eater guys. That's a whole other series that we need to talk about. Chris, I know you are in the middle of finishing it, book 7, I
I
think.
I literally have book 7, and I might start it tomorrow. So
Yeah, so that's another series that is fantastic. So Nate, if you are wanting something, they'll pivot from fantasy, sci-fi. It's really good. Christopher Rocchio, yeah, I think it's Rocchio.
yeah,
Many fantasy fans would say he's like one of the most brilliant writers of our day. Like his actual writing it's like beautiful when you read it. Like
yeah,
he's
and
an
he's like 26 now. Like,
yeah,
it's
he's
insane.
it's crazy. And his output, which one of the things I'm excited about with James Islington, or sorry, it is Islington. Audiobook says Islington. I keep wanting to say Islington, but the audiobook does say Islington. Is he seems to be following after a lot of these, not following after a lot of really popular fantasy sci-fi writers and not finishing their books. And
Yeah.
he is like really committed to writing this. He's already, I think, close to halfway done book 3 in this series, which I believe there's going to be 4. From what there was a tweet that I found from him from a couple years ago, and he said right now he's expecting it to be 4 books, which is exciting. So we're about halfway through now. But he's actually like a writer, and he's writing. He's not Patrick Rothfuss or the
George
guy
R. R.
from
Martin,
George R. R.
Scott
Martin, and
Lynch. I could just
yeah,
name off all the people who are on my crap list, if that
yeah,
makes
which is
sense.
too bad because they've created really great worlds, and now they're just not releasing books. But anyways, James Islington, if you're listening, hopefully you are. Thank you for committing to actually write and actually getting this out. So, all right, before we get into our thoughts on this book, Nate, last time the 3 of us were together, we discussed Will of the Many, but you had not yet finished the first one. You had not finished it yet. You got
Correct.
I think you were about 3/4 of the way through.
Yep.
You made some predictions. I don't think any of us really remember what those predictions were, but what were your thoughts when you finally get to the end of the book and you realize, wait, there's an epilogue? Wait, there's another epilogue? What's
Yeah.
going
So
what are
I
your
actually kind of finished the book and I didn't read because again on Audible it's different, right? So you kind of finish the book and then there's the epilogue where he wakes up in is it Res, right? Or
really quick
in
before you
Obitium.
finish that? Really quick, listeners, I just want to give a warning. If you have not finished Will of the Many, just stop listening. If you're here, because this is going to ruin it for you, go listen to it. And definitely, if you, we're going to get to a point where if you have not finished Strength of the Few, we're going to tell you stop listening.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Nate, continue your thought. Just wanted to get that out there so people can't get mad at us for.
Yeah, so
ruining.
I had kind of finished the story, right? He comes to the end of the Eutychium. He's Domitor. He has the dream where his father's there, and then the boat's there, and you're like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And I hadn't actually read the part, so I'm like, oh yeah, finally finished. And people are just like, so what do you think about 3 worlds and cloning? And I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? And it's because I hadn't read the epilogue, so I go back and read the 10-minute epilogue. I'm like, oh gosh. Obviously I didn't see that coming, right? I knew, the gate is closed, Obitium is lost, do not open the gate, like all that kind of stuff, the path to Eutychium or path to Obitium all the people who talked about synchronous and they got trapped in the labyrinth as the, like, you know, zombies who help somebody navigate the labyrinth. I figured it was a gateway to something, another world, another reality. But the idea that these three worlds exist simultaneously and that when you're synchronous, you exist in all three worlds was just mind-boggling to me. And the truth is, I didn't know that I was going to like that.
Cool.
Because the thing about The Will of the Many is there are several different reasons you can like the book, right? You can like the world that he built in terms of will and the sort of futuristic Roman world. You can obviously get really attached to Vis, and I don't think you'll really like the book if you're not attached to Vis because it's so Vis-centric with the first person narration. Or you can get it, like, I bet there's a lot of Harry Potter-esque fans who just love the, like, school environment and him, you know, navigating his way through the classes and having to get past, you know, the teachers that don't like him and the politics, right? So there's so many aspects to it. It's a political thriller in some ways because he's you know, working with the Anguis to overthrow the government. There's the school sort of, like, you know, young adult aspect of it where it's this, like, teenager who's interacting with other teenagers. There's a love interest with Amisa. There's a school. There's, you know, and then there's this, like, really creepy sort of thriller sci-fi side of it where there's dead zombies with spikes sticking out of them, and he gets there at night, and it's a creepy scene and all that, right? So there's so many different aspects to it that I imagine that there were people who got to the end, and as soon as it's going to get split into three worlds, they're like, yeah, I'm not into that. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be. So I went into the second one knowing, okay, he's a great writer. I'm really attached to the characters, but I'm not sure if I'm going to like the perspective on things. But I am loving it. And the more like anything else, Chris kind of taught me this about these kinds of books where it's just like the fun part is talking to people about it, right? So it's like once I started talking to people about their theories and what they saw that I missed or what I saw that they missed or whatever, that's where it like grows on you even more. And so I wasn't sure I liked the ending when I first read it, but it grew on me a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting what you say there just about reading it with people. It's brought out that MCU joy that we had for all
Yeah,
those years before
for
the
sure.
MCU stuff. And it was just the excitement of talking about, like, what's going to happen in Endgame, and we had like a year to theorize and talk about it. And like, we just did it all the time, I remember. And so now here we are. It's like every single Sunday we are talking to somebody about this book, which has just been so much fun. And even on our Discord, a lot of the people on there are reading it. And then we have our separate group chat with people at church where we're talking about it. And it has been one of the most fun things I've done in a while is
For sure.
talking about this book. And even like Melissa, she finished it. She's listening again to book 2 right now. So in the last like month, she listened to Will of the Many twice. And now she's listening to The Strength of the Few for the second time. And I'm not convinced that she won't read it again because she's just, and like, so we're talking about it all the time and she's now picking out new things. So
it was funny. We went to pick up the kids from King's Cross Academy and I'm walking in with Lauren and she's like, did you finish? And I was like, yeah, I finished. So we start talking about the ending. And then Melissa comes up. She's like, what are you guys talking about? Like, Melissa wants to get in on the theories. And then, like, it's just been funny. And we'll get into this, obviously, where, you know, Melissa and Lauren and I all had completely different ideas of where the story is going, which is great. Like, when there's that much potential theory crafting. So,
Well, it's because we all read The Will of the Many, and we were universally we were all wrong, like, pretty much.
Yep.
So we're kind of conditioned now to be like, here's what I think, but I think I'm wrong. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it was funny. You guys are describing the same thing. I did the exact same thing on Sunday because I finished it Sunday morning, this past week. But me and Perry Wall made eye contact, like, sounds kind of gay, but like across the sanctuary, and we streamlined towards each other, and then we just like talked for the whole
that's
time.
just drawn.
And then I did the announcements, and then I literally walked down the aisle, grabbed Jordan, and we went into the hallway and talked.
Wow.
There's just so many things that were running through my mind. It was like, okay, Chris, I have to debrief real quick. So Chris, you being our, I'd say, resident fantasy fiction
Aficionado.
expert, how did you feel about this book after reading Will of the Many? You really liked it. how do you feel about this one? You're all done now. How do you think it compares, just high level, to Will of the Many? So Strength of the Few, how does it compare?
Yeah, I was very much like Nate. I actually had doubts that the second book would land the plane, in terms of like the three worlds, because I was like, I I wasn't sure how I felt about that, going into it, because I really was invested in the Res world. But I actually like the Strength of the Few better. I think it's a better book.
Ugh.
Like I think, uh we'll probably talk about it, but I think he matured the
Yeah.
atmosphere of the book a lot. It from like Will of the Many does have a very young adult-ish kind of feel. Like to the point where even at the end of the book, this we can talk spoilers about Will of Many, right?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
When Calanus dies, it kind of actually feels a little bit like, oh, like
yeah.
I didn't expect this to be that kind of like thing.
Yeah. I didn't think he'd
Um
sacrifice those like that level of character. Like Belly,
Mhm.
sure,
Yeah,
but
Belly, exactly, like, and that's kinda what I meant. It kinda went to that, like, you mentioned Red Rising, Jordan. It kinda went to that, like, oh, it's a great atmosphere, but it is a dark story, if that kinda makes, and I think the Strength of the Few really just elevated that, particularly actually, in all 3 of the worlds at periods, you know what I mean? Like, if
yeah,
like, Obatian starts as, like, "This is the darkest place
nightmare.
I've
Yeah.
ever heard of." Res seems fine, and then it kind of switches. So I actually really like the book better. Like Goodreads isn't really great for giving you like nuance in your ratings. Like it's either a 4-star or a 5-star or a 3-star. You can't be like, oh, it's a 3-star, but it would be like a 5-star if I was comparing it to kids' books, if that made sense, right? Like,
Yeah.
so for the Strength of the Few, I would love to give it like, you know, a much more in depth rating because I actually think it's a stronger book. Like, one,
Certainly his writing is
yeah.
like to keep the three worlds separate, to keep you invested in all three worlds equally, and even sort of shift your focus and your desires back, to leave things on cliffhangers and then go to another world and not disappoint the writer. Like those are all really subtle writing techniques and
Yeah.
skills.
It'll be interesting if you guys are gonna do the Lycanius trilogy next. It'll be really interesting for you guys because that's his first series that I'm aware of at least,
Mhm.
and his writing is massively improved in the like, so, like, it'll be interesting to see how you guys, like how you guys feel about Lycanius because you're actually going back to, like, where he's not as mature of a writer, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. I think it's a great book, don't get me like, those are great books, but, like, these are vastly superior books
Mm.
if I was gonna say. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I
I
think
loved it. I think I said this to Nate, and maybe I said to you too, Jordan. I actually prefer this book. Like, where it is right now, where it's going, I'm in. Like, this is gonna be great. If he lands the plane in books 3 and 4 or 5, I have a feeling it'll probably get to the 5 mark. This could be a top 5 series, like, ever. Like,
that.
right now, I would say this is how I felt when I read, not Rhythm yeah, Rhythms of War, when I like, that's book 2 of Stormlight. I get the titles wrong.
No, it's,
But, like,
No, Words of
Way of
Radiance.
Kings,
Words
Words
of
of Ra
Radiance, yeah, that's it, sorry, Jordan. Um, where I was like, the first book set up the world in a great way, and then the second book is just like, this is just beyond everything else that I'm reading, and so if he continues in that vein, like,
As
we might be
opposed to
reading this
doing
to our
what the
kids.
Cosmere did.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, well, I mean, like, that would probably require some level of apostasy from James, and let's pray that that doesn't happen
Yeah.
because, so far he's doing well. And, yeah, I think it definitely had a Stormlight feel to it with the 3 worlds, and one of the interesting things, you missed this, Nate, if you're not reading it physically, is the beginning at the top of each chapter, it has the symbol to
yeah,
indicate
very
Yeah.
which,
helpful.
and then
Well,
but that has some, like, interesting things later on where all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, oh, okay." And it's so you kinda missed, yeah. Well, I don't wanna get into spoiler talk, but you can
well,
there's
well,
indications of some
can
things
we? Can
happening.
we just get into it? We're 30 minutes in. Let's get
Okay.
into the spoilers.
Okay, listeners, alright. We love it. Okay, before we
Ben,
just
finish
so
the book.
listeners, what's that?
I just said,
Yeah,
"Ben, finish the book."
yeah, go read the book. We're 30 minutes in. Alright, spoiler warning, here it is. So, one of the chapters, so at the beginning of each chapter, there's a symbol for each of the worlds, but then you get to one chapter and there's 2 symbols. And so all of a sudden you're like,
Ooh.
what?" And then that's the one where,
Oh,
Keistis,
right, where he
brings
teleports?
him, yeah, where he brings him into
Ah,
Lucium on
interesting.
Spill, and it's like, oh, so there's like that little subtle hint right there at the top of the chapter where you're like, oh, what's gonna happen? Ah, I see.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
so I think it was Caleb Miller who pointed that out first in our chat, and I immediately thought like, "Oh man, that's I was a bit behind everybody in reading." And I thought, "Oh man, that's going to suck for me because I'm just listening in audio." And I was looking to see if there's anything audio that would indicate, and there isn't.
No.
But one of the things I actually really appreciated is even listening to it, I never got confused. He was very good at making it clear which world he was in as soon as you started listening, which was helpful. Like I didn't want to be confused when I was reading it. There's enough questions and mysteries that he didn't need to make that part complicated, and I'm actually glad he didn't. I think he could have really complicated this if you were sitting there going like, which world are we in right now? Like even just the fact that he's Katenicus in one place and he's, not Diago but Daglon in the other one, and then he's Vis, right? So I think he did a really good job of making it clear which world he was in, which I appreciated because I think it could have got very confusing and it didn't need to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he does a really good job of, like, making it make sense that he's changed the name in every
Yeah.
area,
Yeah.
so that it's very easy for us to keep track of who he's actually talking about, and I
Yeah.
think that will, like, spoil it for what I think, but, like, I think that's gonna be very important because I actually have a feeling that these vistas are gonna be, like, interacting with each other,
Mm.
in the future, which means we're gonna have to have a way to know which vis is saying
Yeah.
what, doing what, right? And then
That'll be
one of the
interesting though,
brilliant
because that will have to break his narrative
I
form, right? Because he won't be able to do well. Maybe he will. Like
yeah,
maybe
he'll
the
probably just
symbol at
double
the
check.
top in the third one will be which Vis's perspective it is. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That'll be
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, I was like, in terms of one of the reasons I think this is a vastly superior book, is it kinda makes every chapter a little cliffhanger, right? Like, so
Yeah.
when you're reading like the Lucium this perspective, and something happens, but it does and then all of a sudden you like, oh, but now I'm in Res and Obitium, and then back to Res before I get back to Lucium. You're just like, it's a cliffhanger, and you just want to keep reading, which is partly why we read it all so fast,
Yeah.
which the first book didn't have, right? Like we finished a chapter, I flipped the page, I can see it's immediately going with the same thing, but this has a lot more of the um more of a broader fantasy type style in terms of
Yeah.
like you do kind of have to wait to find out what's happening, and it makes you keep reading, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's like how many like we're doing spoilers now, so we can talk about it. Like, how many people had to put down the book after it was like, and my father said hello or whatever the word was at that point,
Yeah.
and you're just like,
Or
I have
Hill,
to go to sleep now. Like,
Hail Vis, said my
like
father, and you're like,
did
oh
you say
yeah,
god.
Hill Vis or Hill Diago?
Hail
I
Diago,
think he
maybe.
said Diago,
Diago, yeah.
Yeah,
Diago.
yeah. Hill
Like,
Diago.
and I'm just like, I remember having to stop. I think that's the end of part two or whatever, and
Yeah.
I was like, are you serious? Like, I have to do youth now? Like, this is
Yeah.
insane. Like, it's
Well,
crazy.
because the fit, I think that was really interesting how he set that up because I think it was before that where we saw that. Was it before that where other? Oh, shoot. Okay, no, because early on in Lucium, when he's with his schoolmates like
Yeah, he
Tara,
says somebody who
He
looked a
said
lot
somebody
who
like
looked like me, but
yeah.
then before he answered that it was his dad, I think that was when Resvis went to Lucium. So you're like, oh, it was just like a Harry
that's
Potter
what I thought
Patronus,
too. I thought he
right?
was
Yeah.
seeing himself and it just reminded him of his
And
father.
so then
That's
it's like, oh, okay, so it's not really his dad, but then it was his dad. It's
yeah.
like, oh, come on,
Yeah,
because
that was
he
cool.
like misdirected to make you think that he just saw himself instead of his father, which
Yeah,
I
and
thought
I'm
that
actually
was
glad. One of the things I was worried about because what we thought in book one was a dream of him seeing his father, and his father says like, you'll see me again. Nobody's ever really dead, Diago. You're thinking, oh, like people are still alive in Lucium, or like originally Chris and I were talking about like is Lucium sort of like the afterlife? Is that heaven and hell? And so
yeah.
he'll meet good people in Lucium and maybe bad people in Obitium or whatever. And I'm glad they didn't do that. I think that could have been. I think that might have been a little cheesy. What he did was actually much better.
Mm.
Yeah. I I actually want to give Jordan a little prop because I think the only prediction that I've heard so far that actually is actually accurate is that Jordan actually did call that the dad was really there that put the boat because that's one of the big questions in book 1, right? Like, who put the boat there?
Yeah.
And the dad confirms it was him that put the boat there, right?
Yeah.
Like, so that conversation was real, and I think you're the only person that said that bluntly. Like, I think that was actually his dad. Now, you had
Yeah.
some weird theories about him being the dog, but like, but we'll
There's
let that go. So
there's something with that alupai,
oh,
and I am thrilled that was I called that, and I have not seen it. I wanna pat
yeah, let
myself
me
on the
talk. Can we talk about the alibi? Because I have a great
because but
I
no,
think I'm
I
right
would
about this. Oh, sorry.
I haven't heard anybody else talk about that alupai being anything more than a wolf. It's like, guys, there is no way, especially given what we have now seen in this book, that is just an alupai.
Yeah.
There's just
I think
like
it
a wolf.
is.
You really think it's just a wolf?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a wolf too.
But I think
So
Look, just a wolf?
yeah,
Like,
well,
just
go
sorry,
ahead,
who's
Chris.
talking? Who's talking? So, like,
hey, go ahead.
I don't want to talk
Chris.
over you. It's your podcast,
No, go ahead.
but I'm so excited. So I thought originally the wolf died in the first book, and when we saw that he could like bring back an Ukdai, he had actually made the wolf an Ukdai. But then Nate very astutely was like, "But the wolf. It says the wolf grew after that." So I was like, "It can't be that." So what I
Yeah.
actually think happened is I actually think he imbued his will into Diago.
Yeah.
So inadvertently, when he was like trying to save him, he imbued him, which we now know he can do, right? And so I think Diago's basically Vis has part of Vis's brain and will in him,
Yeah.
which is why when he gets to that scene, which is like probably the best scene in the book, to be honest with you, when Diago, for other than for Nate who did like the gore, but like when Diago kills all of military, basically, it's very clear that Vis is getting frustrated and he's feeling, and all of a sudden Diago reacts in a way that's like what you wanted kind of Vis to do,
Yeah.
but not knowing Vis wouldn't do it, right? Like, and so I actually think like what the power that we see in Lucium, which is they imbue objects with their own essence, right? Because that's what the spears are, right? And all the weapons. That will is being used now in Res because Viz can use the will everywhere, but he actually inadvertently imbued Diago in book 1, and we know that he could use will in book 1 even though he hadn't been to the Aurora Columna yet, because we see him do it at the end when he heals himself and when he sucks the thing. So like, and I don't know if that's because the timelines of each world are different, but like I actually think Diago is not just a an alibi. I keep wanting to call him a dire wolf, but he's not just an alibi. I actually think it's like literally part of Viz's will in the dog. Like, because he even survives that like in book 3, survives that like wound that you're like, that should kill you. Like,
The
and then
spear.
it's fine.
Yeah, the spear to his
It made
throat or whatever.
yeah.
And
They
but
make
what
that
what do we see with Viz? He survives everything, right? Like, and that's part of the way his will manifests. Sorry,
but
I
when
didn't
he
mean to talk over you guys.
but when he would have imbued if you're saying that he imbued, Diago the Alupai with his will, that would have been before he went through and was synchronous though, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what? And this is that's my kind of hitch to Chris's theory, but Chris's theory was actually pretty good. Where it's like, you know how, and obviously Islington is a Christian guy. You know that verse in Revelation where it's like, "Behold, the Lamb of God who is slain before the foundation of the world."
Mm.
And there's this idea that like with different worlds, like, you know, so you know, when Christ descends and he's in the throne room and he's the slain lamb in the throne room, that was the sacrifice that God was looking at even in the Old Testament, as you know, the saints had faith in the lamb who was to come. And so it's almost like there is something special about Vis, as his father kind of affirms in their conversation, where I think he was actually able to use will from each world prior to. And I think we're going to see little bits and pieces along the way, because one of the big questions from book 1 is, how does Vis do the things that he does, right? How did he beat a Sextus, you know, as without any will? How did he do? And I think what we're going to learn is that he actually was having access to will from all 3 worlds prior to any of it, because there is something special about him, whether he's like a Neo sort of like savior or what, from birth, not just because he's synchronous. I think there's going to be something special about him. So we're going to actually find that all these little times when we were like, how did he possibly survive that? What we're going to find is that he was inadvertently using will as it is in other worlds prior.
And Aquia thinks that, like, she accuses him of that in book 1.
Yeah. That's right.
right? Like that he somehow cheated the system. So you wonder if he didn't cheat the system, but he kind of did cheat. You know what I mean? Like without
Right.
being aware of it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
um that's my
I
Diago theory, and I
so I
love it.
do I will agree with you that the best scene in the book, not the most emotional scene in the book, but one of them, and certainly the best scene in the book, is when, and I thought Islington did such a good job. So you're there, and I know we'll talk about this, Jordan, because I think you and I have different ideas on how fallen Vis is by the end of book 1 in Res. But
Yeah.
it was clear that Islington, like, I'm sitting there anxious as a reader. I'm going, how is he going to get out of this? Like, Vis wouldn't kill all these people, but you kind of want him to, because number one, they deserve to die. It is justice for what they've done. And then number
Yep.
two, Ostius says, hey guys, I want to introduce you to Diago, Prince of Seuss. And you're like, well, if he doesn't kill them, he's screwed. So you're like, it's interesting how Islington used Diago the wolf as the like instrument of justice, because Vis wasn't so fallen as to do that himself. But there's this now literary device where he has an alibi who will do, his will, but doesn't have the same sort of self-control and restraint that Vis does. He doesn't have the moral restraint. So it's like Diago responds to Vis's emotions, but not necessarily his inner sense of morality, which I think is a really cool tool. Like that whole scene where he takes his sandals off and he's taking the will out of the floor, and then the different generals are going to take their will back, and the look of horror on their faces when they realize it's not there, and Vis is like high on will. Like that was just such a great scene for so many reasons. And Ostius is such a cool character. Like I still don't really know what side he's on. I don't know what his game is, and I just find him a very, very interesting character.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that's maybe something we're talking about a little bit, is try to figure out like who's the bad guy in all of this, because I don't think that is a clear thing at all. Because so going into this in the first chapter, which was released probably 6 months ago, you see that like this Obitium Vis goes through, and he is then introduced with Siror, who, real quick, Siror, what a dope character in this. I was just disappointed that he in Obitium kind of pieced out pretty early, which I think there's going to be reasons for that. But it's kind of interesting, or like disappointing, because like he was actually really, really cool character. And so, but anyway, so then he comes through, and he's now in Obitium. He sees, there's sand everywhere, like it looks totally different. But then he gives us a little bit of insight into what actually happened. And so we see that the world was the what has been set up as the big bad guys is this concurrence. And early on, you don't really know what that concurrence is. But in order to fight the concurrence and prevent this obliteration of everything, so everybody dies, humanity somehow in some way split the world into 3 different worlds: Res, Lucium, and Obitium, thus splitting will so that it's not all unified, so that there's different kind of applications of how will manifests in the different worlds. But they did this as a way of preventing the concurrence from wiping out the whole world. So there's not like a person or people who are able to utilize will in its full potential to prevent the bad guys from being able to do that and wipe everything out. And so that's kind of like the setup. And then we hear of this Ka figure, who is the one who is synchronous. And we learn throughout the book that being synchronous is somebody who now has been split into 3 separate, unique forms of an individual. And in order to be able to manifest will, you have to be synchronous, which is then why we see at the end of Will of the Many, there's those we now know are the Yunkdai, who are then killing the Res version, which happened to Siror, and anybody else who becomes synchronous, to prevent them from being synchronous, which is existing.
And that's who would have killed Vis had Diago not saved him.
Exactly. Yes. And so now this is one of only a few people, or I guess we don't even know how many people have been synchronous, but he's only the second one to exist fully synchronous. We know people have gone through the process, but then even we find out on Lucium, the big bad guy, Rurik, has been killing anybody who comes through to prevent them from being synchronous. So we're told that Ka is trying to kill anybody because he's the big bad guy. he's the one who is ruling over all these worlds, and Vis has to go and kill Ka, which is crazy because then when we get to the point with Obatium Vis, he does kill Ka, who ends up just being this guy in this pyramid lying
On a
down on a
table.
table.
Yeah, you're
And he goes and
expecting
kills
like
him.
a final boss fight, right? You're thinking to
Yeah,
yourself,
but
like, how
then
is this going to kill this guy? Because this guy's clearly so powerful. No,
It's because
it's
Well,
they
just a
set up
dude.
they set up that Ka and the concurrence are the same thing,
Right.
yes.
and all the hints in the book are like, we created a god, and we act like we basically created a god, and it was too bad, and we think in our brains that that's Ka taking will and all this stuff, but it's actually the concurrence, and Ka's
Yep.
actually the restraint on the concurrence. So, like, I think what's happening is in Obatium, he's their prisoner,
I
and
Mhm.
agree.
like they've kept him in check basically. So I actually think, like, are we just doing spoilers now? Like,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're
uh,
we're at
I actually think Seor in Obatium is an Inuktitut. So, and I actually think Seor is on the concurrence's side. So
Mm.
even though he's the best boy in that book, like, he's great, I think him and Veritas and all them, I think they're actually on the concurrence's side. So, well, maybe not Veritas, but like, it seems like they're all working together. And I think that's why Viz was so easily able to get to Ka. Like, it seems so easy that he gets there at the end. Um, and I think it's they even made it like somewhat challenging for him to get there so that Viz wouldn't be tipped off that this is too easy. Because he
Yeah.
even says that this seems too easy.
Yeah.
And then he kills him, and then the Ka in Res is like, "Yeah, you made a massive mistake.
You messed
And
up.
that
You done messed up,
you
kid.
done messed up." And then he's like, "And this is all on you now. Like, you have to do
Yeah.
this."
I
And,
can't do it anymore.
like, the most brilliant part of that whole book is, like, that scene where a Carnifex is, like, throwing up all the arrows in the air to, like, point where he is, and Ka comes to you, "You've been looking for me?" And it's like, it says that,
Yeah.
like, his silhouette is too still, and then he just
Lean-
steps in, and he's like this like, he's just this, like,
You're just a dude,
uh, the
like a
normal dude who's
tattered
haggard and,
traveler.
like, and it's like, this is on you now, and you're gonna have
Yeah.
to do this." And then he goes on to, like, point out, like, "I I am the reason the cataclysm happens, but it happens because it needs to, or else the Inuktitut, Borg, AI, whatever we wanna call it, that they've set up to try to, like, make their lives easier, kill them." And I'm like, what a brilliant, like like, uh, enemy is, like, we created an enemy to make our lives so convenient because the Inuktitut do all the work. They purify the
Yeah.
water, they feed us, they do all these things, and to protect us, to basically make us like the Westerners in Obatium who just live in luxury all the time. I'm thinking of the movie Up, where they're just all degenerate, like, guys. But
Wally.
in our attempt to make our lives completely comfortable and completely devoid of work, devoid of anything that God has laid before us, we actually create the worst possible utopia of all time. And that machine, because it doesn't have a compass of compassion or morals or grace or mercy or anything, just fulfills the role that it was programmed to do, which actually means it eradicates humanity, like, and subjects them all. Well, like, I'm just like, cause the good
Skynet.
guy. Like,
Turns out concurrence is
Let's
Skynet.
talk. Well, and that's where, like, do you actually think that this is Eilington's caution of AI? Because that's what immediately came to my mind was it's like this thing that is a convenience and like it morphs into because he even says, I can't remember who says it, but when they're talking about the concurrence, it's not a who, it's a what. So it's this thing. And so, yeah, it's this like hive mind of Yungtai who are now, like, yeah, interconnected because I think it even says like if one of them sees you, they all see you. So there's like
Yeah. Well, you see that a bit
because
in
even,
Obatium, right? When an overseer
yeah,
sees him, it immediately, everything knows.
well, when you think of a god, it's even right now in our modern day where the state is trying to create a god. That's like their surveillance state, information state, um,
Yeah.
all these things where it's like
The
the
concurrence is the
state,
deep state. Like this.
yeah, like it's all knowing, it's everywhere, it's all powerful, and it's like, well, that's what they've essentially created and are creating because like right when somebody dies, they can then just kind of continue to add to their numbers. And so it is essentially a god. So I wonder if that's what he's kind of getting at here in like a fantasy setting is a caution over what will happen with AI.
Yeah, I think he's doing that. I think he's doing a couple things. Like, so I think that is the caution. I don't know if it'd be specifically about AI, but it might be just about like a rejection of this convenience culture that we have, where we try to make everything so controlled and whatnot. I think there is definitely he's definitely pulling from the idea of the state. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and when we don't have the real God as our God, we will have a God. It'll just be a
Yeah.
humanly created God, which is a terrible thing. But I also think he's like very cleverly answering the question of like, why does God allow bad things to happen? And it's like this idea, like, because we kind of left with the question at the end, if what Cause says is true, that his eradication of 90% of people is actually to save the 10%, or else everybody's gone. It's complete destruction of the world and humanity exists. Ka, even though he's doing something very, from our
Wicked.
perspective, evil, it's actually a good thing. And it's like that. So I think he's kind of like very cleverly pulling on that, honestly, just picking at that question that I think everybody kind of has is, if God is good, why do bad things happen? You know what I mean? Why doesn't he just eradicate evil? Why doesn't he just do these things? And
I
as Christians, we can reconcile that, but I don't think non-Christians can. And I think he's very cleverly kind of answering that question to the pagan that reads this book. Because I would say most people who are reading this are not born again believers, right? Like, so I actually think there's a really deep meaning of the book. And I think that's why it resonates so well with Christians, but also just, I think, everybody, because we all actually have that question. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know if that made any sense.
So I think he's actually going to go. I think he's going to go further than that, because I think what's going to happen, and this is where I think Jordan, you and I will probably diverge a bit, because I know you had kind of said, "Are we watching Anakin Skywalker, right? The Ascent of Darth Vader with Res Vis," which I think is a good analogy, but I don't think that's exactly what's happening. I think that the second book ends with, we would all say, Vis making a bad decision, because I think we've all learned to trust Iden's moral character, and Iden's like, do not do this, and Vis does. But I think what's going to happen is that Ka thinks this is the only solution. And I think the reason he thinks this is the only solution is because he's not willing to tear down the system, right? And I think that's going to be in order to preserve the system, the use of will, the comfort living that because it's interesting. Will is very much like, though it can be used by individuals, will is very much like an analogy, I think, for technology generally, right? That because they use will for the transfects, they use will for like building, they use will for everything. Will is the thing that keeps society moving, right? And I think he's been very clever in how he's utilized all that will. So I think what's going to actually happen is that this, like, cause thing is, in order to keep this going, a cataclysm has to happen every time. So I think what it is that the worlds try to come back together every once in a while, right? And in order to prevent them from coming back together, which would unleash the concurrence in the real world, I think what they've done is sort of trapped the concurrence in Obitium. That could happen a couple of different ways. They might have rendered the worlds so that the concurrence was put in Obitium, or to like separate the hive mind, and then they've defeated the concurrence in Lucium. They've defeated the concurrence in Res, but they haven't in Obitium. It won. So whether they trapped it in Obitium in the first place, or whether the concurrence won the battle for Obitium, I think we get hints of that when it says Obitium is lost, don't open the gate, right? Like, don't let the concurrence back in. I think Ka is thinking the only way to stop the worlds from coming back together is to continually do the cataclysm. Whereas I think Vis is going to I think what's going to have to happen is he's going to have to use the sort of zombie army, right? The Yunkti army, and to be the princept. And I think he's going to have to try to convince everybody to stop using will. Like, I think that's the whole thing, is you have to stop using will. And Ka just never saw that as a possibility or a reality, or maybe didn't even want to. Vis is going to have to do that. And so he's going to try to convince people to stop seeding, and they're not going to. And he's going to have to use his new princept powers to like kill a bunch of people. But I think at the end of it, he's going to have to stop using will. And I actually think it'll probably culminate to a point where like they've stopped seeding and they're wondering why it hasn't worked out. And then Vis has to stop seeding as well.
Yeah.
which is going to have all of his loved ones who've come back in this zombie army. They're going to have to die, right? Because he's going to have to stop seeding himself as well. So I think that's kind of where it's going a little bit. But
Yeah,
I have hope that Vis is redeemed, not that Res Vis becomes the emperor.
but I think you're both actually right. I do think Res Viz is good to become the emperor, but it's going to be the ends justify the means kind of emperor, where it's like to bring justice to this crazy world, I'm going to
Yeah.
take the ultimate power, which is Darth Vader, right? Like, but I think you're also right, Nate, in terms of like, I think the ultimate good of that will be the thing Khan never could do would be kill himself. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
or let himself die, right? Or give up his own immortality, because it's very clear he's immortal with the, and so, uh, where I think Vis will be able to lay down his thing, which is kind of the Tolkien Frodo at the end of Lord of the Rings, right? Like where it's like if Frodo just throws the ring into the Mount Doom, you're just like, oh, Frodo, what a great boy, you know what I mean? But he like Tolkien plays on that, like Frodo still chose to keep it, to keep the power and all that stuff, and it's like only thankfully because of Gollum, but. I think it's going to be one of those things. I think Res Viz will redeem himself by actually laying down his power and ending the like system kind of thing, which will end the concurrence. I think there's like but I think Jordan's right too. Like I think it's very interesting that we're gonna get a perspective of the bad version of Viz, and it's the Viz that we actually have been with the whole time. Like
Well,
because
because
and
you
you
just
even see this in the book, like it's probably till the middle of part 2, everything Viz has done is perfect. Like and I went even back through like did he ever make a mistake in book 1? Like, everything worked out fine. And then all of a sudden Diago kills all those people, and then all of a sudden we see Visti's killing people in as Carnifex for 2 weeks, which I actually thought I missed a chapter, it just jumped so much. And then he does the Reliquia thing, which is like one of the like I loved it because you want the justice, but it's also like that doesn't seem like Viz, where he is like
Leaves her in the
he's like,
sapper.
"See ya."
Yeah.
And then he meets the Anuktai, I know that's before, but he meets the Anuktai with Emisa,
Yeah.
and he doesn't end the suffering, you know what I mean? And it's like
I was so sure he was going to, and I'm like, Vis, just don't ruin this. I thought he was going to, end the suffering or whatever. And when he leans in and just says, good, that was the first indication. I'm like, man, Vis has changed.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think Nate and you and I talked about it. It seems like Will's corrupting him. And
Mm.
it's like and like, what do we know? Ultimate power does corrupt. Like, and so he's starting to also make decisions, even like he gets fooled by Aiden's father. And it's like that doesn't seem like Viz of
Yep.
book 1, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas Lucium Viz is book 1 Viz, you know what I mean? Like, that's the same Viz, right? He's the same dude.
Well, and that's a really interesting thing that Islington has done. He's showing also how like bad company corrupts good morals. Like he's just showing that like you aren't inherently good, right? You are a series of decisions. You are who you are surrounded by. Lucium is all about honor and camaraderie, and he has his friend core there. But in Res, he's kind of hit trauma after trauma. He's had to make hard decisions. He allowed himself to. I remember Jordan, you and I were talking about like, man, I'm shocked that Vis just went to the Aurora Columni and accepted seeding, because that like book 1 Vis would have died before that took place, right? He literally bears the scars on his back from how opposed to that decision he was. So there's this like he's had to make decisions that have been sort of ends justify the means, and it slowly warped him. And then Obatium Vis is like, I mean, he's swimming in acid, and he's like, all this stuff. He's aligning himself with Nedicret, who has probably the most vile vocation in the history of the world.
Yeah.
And you're just like, it's just showing how you're not inherently who you are. You are a product of your environment and your choices and your companions.
Mhm.
Do you
Which
think then I'm just asking a question. Do you think then like it's not actually cloning in each world? It's actually like part of your personality here, part of your personality here, part of your personality here, and then because like the restraining aspect of your character over here is gone, this becomes like a kind of caricatures of each of your personalities. Like so, Like,
I don't.
I'm just
The only
asking
reason
him.
I don't think so, and only because I think it's a stronger moral tale if it just shows the same person can get corrupt in different environments.
Yeah. I just was thinking, like, he does lots of cool stuff, right? Like,
Jordan, you've been quiet. I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are.
I mean, I think it would just be like narratively fascinating to see what it would be like to have like the first person perspective of Anakin. I just think that would be so cool because even Anakin thought in his twisted way as he was being impacted by the dark side, he still thought it was, or at least was saying it was to bring balance and to bring unity to the Republic. And it was like there was some twisted sense of he thought he was doing the right thing. So here we have, I just think it would be really interesting to get that perspective where he thinks that he's doing the right thing here, but then ultimately it is going to not be. And then to have, I think, Lukeum Silverhand uh, somehow be the version of him that has to confront and actually perhaps like because interestingly like killing one doesn't necessarily kill the other because we've seen like other forms, right? So I think that would just be a really interesting confrontation. Narratively, how does he do that? Maybe it is just, jumping from perspective. So then, like, that could be interesting where you're going like chapter to chapter or something like that, where it's like, this is the perspective of Lukeem Rez or Vis in a fight. Like, what would that even
Yeah.
potentially look like? I just think that would be interesting. I think that would be really cool to see that. I think there's something there with Iden saying like, no, don't do this. But then it's tough because then you feel so almost happy for him at the end there where he sees his mom, he sees his sister, and then just like Hilvis at the end
Which
after
we all
Iden.
think is Calidus, right?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, like Iden smiling. I think it even says that Iden looked over his shoulder and was smiling, and then you see Hilvis. The only thing I don't love about that is there's no, I don't, if you're going to choose to kill somebody, kill them. I just don't love where it's
But
there's really no consequence except for Equa. But I mean, like we saw in Lucium, it's like they knew that there was something that could bring people back, so they just immediately, when somebody died, they cut their head off because that was the way that
yeah,
you prevent from coming back. And so I don't know if what was the name of the guy?
Decimus?
Who's the guy? What was it?
Like the
Decimus.
Tertius Decimus guy? I don't.
Yeah, so the one who actually killed Equa and just
Oh.
like crushed her head in. What do you guys think about that? Because that was so far most people who I've spoken to, like that was a jarring, shocking thing. And I think just how quickly it happened, how much you like Equa, her like she kind of became the bro of this and like his right hand person. What did you guys think about it? I thought it was really quick, but maybe that was exactly what he wanted, just to show just like nobody's safe at any point. It just what did you guys think about that? Nate, I know you had strong feelings about
Oh
it.
man, I had to take a break. Like I was actually devastated. I can't think of a moment in a novel that I've read where it had that kind of an emotional impact on me. And maybe it's just because of how quickly I read. So like they're longer novels, right? And so I just read Will of the Many. I was reading Strength of the Few. I think they do such a good job at making Equa like the one person. I didn't as well, obviously, but they're separated because they're in different
Pure books.
pyramids. But like Equa is like without a doubt, yes, I'm taking Equa on the chariot race. Yes, I'm doing like Equa has been so even when you see in this corrupted world where everybody wants more will, she I think it's Calidus's father who says like if you had have asked, she would have given you the Quintus title, right? When he was just a sextus at the end of the chariot race. And he's like, that kind of loyalty doesn't exist in Catan. And like
Mm.
and even just the flirty kind of, I don't know if it was bro-y. I was actually thinking that it was going to move towards romance, where they're like kind of flirty on the roof and just jabbing at each other. And she seems like the one uncorrupted character in Res.
Mm.
And that innocence just dies in the most brutal, gory fashion. Now, Chris and I have talked at length. Like, I would say my one criticism of this book was that I thought he just amped up the gore a little too much. I think that there was in his writing, and Chris kind of speculated that maybe the first book was confused a little bit as like a young adult fiction, so he added a little bit more gore to make sure that it's like that's not what this is. But
Mhm.
like I think he could have, and maybe not, maybe the emotional reaction that I had was exactly what he was going for, but like I think he could have done that just with him breaking her neck. Like the idea that he popped her head like a grape and shook brain off of his hands, like it was just so gory and so abrupt and so unexpected and so fast. I needed to take a break. I was actually emotionally upset, and I all I wanted was for Vis to find a way to kill Decamus in that moment. I almost didn't want the book to end without Decamus getting justice. And I guess like obviously Islington evoked all those emotions in me, but like that was a hard scene.
Were you guys disappointed in uh, the fact that Decimus or Decamus, whatever it is, that he was kind of a not really an important character? Like,
Yeah.
because that was where it's like it felt like a little bit like, well, like who are you again? And you just killed one of the most important characters in the book. Now, I think he's probably teeing that up for the next book, where now all of a sudden he is going to be more of a
Villain.
um, a villain. But it was just kind of it would have felt well. I mean, maybe it just would have been too much if it was somebody that we already knew, and that would have maybe made it
He's doing a
more.
really interesting thing where you never really know where people stand. Now, Decamus is very clearly villain, but like early on, you love Alkiskor because he pulled this orphan out of obscurity and gave him this opportunity. But then, like, Alkiskor risks Vis's life and sends him, and he gets, blinded by his vengeance. You hate Reliquia. Reliquia is terrible and manipulating and lying to everybody. And yet, at the end, I was sad that Vis left her in the sapper, right? And then Viridius is like the big bad guy in book one, where even Vis, every time he does something good, he's just like, he's such a good actor. Like he's just playing a part. And you're like, no, Viridius is actually a good guy. And he's setting all these things up. And it's like, you get to book two, the end of book two, and you're like, Viridius doesn't know what the heck he's talking about. And like
Yeah,
maybe he becomes a bad guy and he is manipulating. I think Chris, you suggested that, but I actually think Viridius is just like he just doesn't know what the heck is going on. He's fighting the right fight, or he's doing making the right choices based on the information he has, but he just has it all wrong. And so you have this like, and then Siror is like one of the most likable characters in this entire book, Obatium Siror. And then I actually think he's probably a Yunctus who is manipulating Vis in Obatium the whole time. And
mhm,
Ruark, who's the bad guy, I think is the real version of Siror, who is actually a good guy, but he was doing terrible things, killing anybody who's synchronous because they had everything mapped out in such a way that, hey, the cataclysms are terrible, but and Ka has a really good line where he says, sometimes you have to do bad things so that good can continue to exist somewhere. And
mhm.
so there's just layers upon layers of like who are good guys and who are bad guys. I think Decamus is the one true, and everybody in Res seems kind of corrupt in different ways. So it's just interesting to see how is he going to bring about justice. The only people I'm sure are good guys is Lucium Vis and Iden. That's it. Like everybody else is up for grabs.
Do you guys like that there's still so much uncertainty? Like we're at the end of
Oh
two
yeah.
books, 1,200 pages, and we actually don't really have an idea of who the bad guy is in this series yet.
This is why the first three maybe seasons of Lost was the best
Mm.
television ever made, because our conversation, this is what's so fun about it, right? If we had all the answers and you tied it up and you're like, oh, but he could give you another book and it'll be good too. I like that he leaves so much uncertainty. It gives so much room for us to talk and theorize and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, the risk it plays, and Chris, you always say this about like Star Wars books that you're really into, is like it's never actually as good as the theory crafting of the fans. And so, we have a hope that Islington's just smarter than all of us and we're all going to love it. But I think that that's the risk you run when you don't give all the answers, is you give everybody something to talk about, but you kind of set yourself up to maybe disappoint.
Yeah, I would say I've probably said this to you lots of times, Nate. And this is gonna sound insanely arrogant, and I don't mean it that way, but like generally the theory crafting is better than what the author does. And so and like often I get disappointed with the ends of series because what my mind has made I think is better. You know what I mean?
Right.
Or what I wanted. You know what I mean? Like, and it ends up different. So it's only the guys like Islington, Joe Abercrombie has done this repeatedly. Stephen Erickson, another author, where I'm like, I had theories, but my theories are so weak compared to what you actually did. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm and so far, I love the fact that this is open ended. We don't really have a clue. One, I don't think we have a clue because I think Viz is actually both the good guy and the bad guy. Like, because I think it's actually just more about like the nature of good and evil and
Yeah.
how people can be kind of both things and stuff than it is about like here's big bad guy, fight big bad guy, even though there is a big bad guy in the concurrence. But I think it's going to be far more about how Viz handles in each of the realm, like in each of the realms. Um, Even though I think OBT and Viz is probably on a slab now, like to be honest with
Yeah.
you. But
Yeah, I think so too.
so I actually
So
think sorry, I
Yeah,
actually
go
think
for it.
we might get Seor as a perspective in book 3. Like,
Oh, that'd be a
like
narrative shift.
it absolutely would be, and that would feel weird, but I actually kind of like I'm like in my brain. So like let's maybe just like talk about Obatian for a sec. He kills Ka, but the Gleamers are all coming in, and he's got the assumption that killing Ka will stop the Gleamers, but we now know that's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, so the Gleamers are gonna either A, kill him, or they're gonna put him on the slab because he's now whatever for whatever reason they want to keep the concurrence guy or the synchronous guy alive to keep their system going because I think they need his he has to stay alive to keep them imbued or whatever it is. I don't know. I don't really understand that part, but um and so like how do we stay in Obatium if Viz is
right,
imprisoned? You know what I mean? Or so like
Right.
I'm thinking like, well, what if he just switched to Seor as a perspective and Seor, even though Seor I think's an Enukti in that world, saves Viz. You know what I mean? Or has to save Viz.
Yeah.
Like
So I
I
have I so what if book 3, because we know it's supposed to be 4 books. I actually hope it stays 4 books because he says that's how it's mapped out currently. And I think the danger is always write the 5th book, write the 6th book, because just stretch it out and fill it in more, because you're making money and everybody loves it. So I think, I hope he keeps it at 4. But what if book 3 doesn't actually advance the story at all, and it's just Siror's perspective while Vis is in there, Lear's perspective in Lucium, and you get sort of filled in answers, and book 3 just sets up so now you have more context, and then book 4 actually finishes the story. I'd be
mm,
I wouldn't be shocked if it was something like that. But okay, so I have some questions because I would say that's the hole in my theory too, Chris, is like, why does the concurrence need a synchronous on that table? And I'm wondering if that table is like almost like a sapper in Obatium, and that's what allows the concurrence to exist as it is. But if everything that I've said so far is correct, what we don't have an answer to is why they didn't just kill Ka, right? They had him as a prisoner, obviously. So obviously they need him in some way. But then it seems like the concurrence doesn't necessarily have 3 world domination. It seems like they'd be okay because keeping him alive is what prevents the worlds from coming back together. So obviously the concurrence doesn't have like world domination in its mind because it's not trying to get back to one world where they can rule everything. So it almost like um creates the problem of like this thing just exists. It's not the big bad guy, it just is. And so you either have to tear down the system because it's not like it's trying to advance its purposes. It's just trying to continue to exist as the hive mind AI thing that it is. So
yeah,
that's the one kind of hole in my theory.
yeah, I think the idea with the um like concurrence is that I think we created it to do a certain thing, which was to make everything kind of work without us being involved. But it does rely on will being given to it, either through like us um like imbuing the Inuktai, which I actually see like Viz has done that in the other world. So I think they keep Ka alive because they need somebody who isn't an Inuktai to actually be the like one who's imbued them. So I actually think the slab is the Aurora Columni in
Right.
Obatium. And so like but the question I have is like how do they get him on it? Like, because it seems you have to actually agree to cede your will. You know what I mean? Like in the
Right.
other world. So I don't know if that's a force thing or whatever. But because like that's the one thing. So I don't think the concurrence is trying to take over the other worlds. I don't think they're a villain like a conquest. I think they're the ultimate outcome of a society that allows convenience and
Right.
like all this stuff to try to make it like easier and easier and easier. Because will seems to make everybody's life easier, 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 right? Like on the strength of like
The few.
on the backs of the will of the many, right? Like so
It's almost what just came to mind as you were talking about that was almost like this is like an anti-communist utopia
yeah.
type thing where because
Yeah.
that's like the promise of communism, right? Or socialism is that we won't have to do anything. Everybody will just make money. We'll lie around doing gay art all the time. And it's just going to be this like beautiful utopia. And it's like that's kind of what this is challenging because
Yeah.
in Obatine they were doing that. They weren't doing like they thought that that's what they were living, but you had to actually enslave them.
And it's interesting too that they have the split between the east and the west of the city, where it's like everybody. I think I might get which one is which messed up, but like in the east, everything is terrible, but there's the hope of getting to the west.
Yeah.
And then in the
Yeah.
west, you just live in luxury and pleasure and excess all the time. And so it's almost like humanity needs that. They need the separation. They need the inequality because you can't actually enjoy your time in the West if you don't think that you're getting stuff that other people aren't getting. And then you can't exist in the East unless there's the hope of getting over there, which actually kind of mirrors Res in that like you are an Octavi with the hope that one day you'll be a Septimus. You're a Septimus with the hope that one day you'll be a Sextus. And that's the whole lie of the hierarchy, right? So I think you're onto something there, Chris. Here's my question though. Like I'm lost in my theories on Ostius. Like, who on earth is Ostius? Which side is he on? Does he exist in two realms? He obviously was synchronous, but he's not anymore. So obviously, I think he's died in one of the two realms. Has he died? He also says that he doesn't have adoption, right? He can't do adoption, which is from Obitium, right? So I think that he must have died very early in Obitium before his synchronous self gained that ability. So then will we find him in Lucium? Do we think that he died in both? Or like, how does he have access to Lucium, but he doesn't have access to Obitium? Is that because the gate is closed and they've trapped the concurrence there? Like, it's just, who is Ostius?
Yeah. I don't know.
yeah, I don't have a good theory on that either.
Yeah.
Because like book one, he seems like the villain. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like and then book two, he like other than the fact that he forces Viz to kill all the military guys, he actually seems like he's a kind of a like he's on Viz's side. Like
Yeah.
and my
He's,
evidence of that would be he's the one who brought the Inuktai dead father into Lucium to watch over Viz, to
yeah.
protect him
Which
and like
worked. Like, Vis would be dead if that didn't
yeah,
happen, right? His father saved him at the bottom of the lake. So
exactly. And then my first initial theory was I actually thought that was Ka from Lucium.
I wondered
So
that too. I did have that theory, but then it's like, so maybe he
but
can't get to Obitium because he was on that sapper. But
yeah,
just the
but
way he's been described, right? Because it's very interesting when Ruark is revealed as Siror, it talks about his missing ear and everything. Like they seem to have the same characteristics. And Ka, as he was described in Obitium, is the same as he was described in Res. So we haven't. I don't think we've seen him in Lucium, but I wondered the same thing. Is that Ostius? But for some reason he's not. How cool was it too when you find out like because Vis is just thinking to himself and he's saying like one of their most terrible customs is that those without blemishes can't rule. And then you find out through Siror that that's because they don't want a synchronous to rule here. And I'm like, oh wow, that's interesting.
True.
But there's also something going on with the druids. Like, how does Lear talk to Vis after he was killed? Because he was like decapitated, and so but Lear somehow talked to him in a vision afterwards. So is that because Chris, you had mentioned they imbue their essence into their staffs, which is what you think happened with Diago, the dire wolf. So, but there's something with the druids as well. It's almost like they're the ones who like an order of monks or religious sect that keeps the problems of other worlds out of Lucium. It's like they almost like they want to be separated, and we don't want any of the problems from the other worlds to come here, and they want to stay in their sort of more simple, less technologically advanced. They regulate will there. There's no seeding, obviously, but they, only the Nazcan can use will, and they're very strict on that. So like it's just interesting. I don't know who the Druids are, and I don't know who Ostius is.
Yeah, I think in the Lucium world, I think you got to think Horcrux from Harry Potter, but good. You know what I mean? Like so,
Mm,
like I don't think anybody's ever really dead. Well, I think that's well established in the Willem, and nobody dies. But like I actually
except
think they
except
literally
for Equa.
Yeah.
except for equal. But I think they do put like their will and their kind of their essence into like objects, particularly their spears, and then they live on like through those things, or can kind of come back in a different form or whatnot. Like, I don't have a better theory for that because I'm like Lear. I feel like Lear died 3 times. Like, and I it's like it just seems like he's dead a couple times. And but he doesn't seem to. And then yeah, that's kind of my theory there. I the question I have in that realm is like like where is Ka? Like, because he has to
Yeah.
exist in that realm too. Is he the bad king? Is he king? Like I think I said to you, Nate, I was like, oh, I think he's King Ronan. And then you reminded me Ronan got batted, and I'm like, oh well,
Yeah,
Ka can't
his head
die
got
twice.
decapitated.
Yeah,
Like
so
he's done.
Yeah.
So I wondered if he was the High King who was ill at first, but he died before Ka and Obatium. So then I'm like, maybe he's Theocra. But then when you see him in Res, right? Because we haven't met Theocra yet. But in Res, Ka seems like a good guy. And so
Mm-hmm.
now we don't really have evidence that caused the terrible. But you also Siror seemed like a good guy in Obatium, but he either had bad information or he wasn't really a good guy. And so now you have Ruark, who seemed like the bad guy in Lucium, turns out to be Siror, and it seems like he's actually a good guy. He was just doing terrible things to save Lucium from the contamination of the other world. So I don't know. Yeah, that's that. We don't know where Ka is in Lucium. He might be Theocra. He might have been the High King who died, and now Ka only exists in Res. But the timing of that doesn't seem to work out. I don't know. Yeah,
yeah,
maybe he's the
and
head
that's kind of
druid. Do we
why
know
I
who
like
the
I
head druid
still kind of
is? Is
wonder if
there like a
maybe
head druid?
Ostius. Sorry.
Is there a head druid?
Uh,
We don't know because Keen's
well, remember
dead,
that Ruark
Lear's dead,
kind of had
Ruark
taken over
was.
the druids board.
Yeah, I don't
Right,
know.
so, but no, we don't know. I don't and like that's part of the fun is like I don't think we have an answer for all that stuff yet, right? Like,
Yeah. And then
um,
how did Obatium weapons get into Res through what they found with Sus? Because those are the weapons that we see Vis using in Obatium to get to Ka, and yet Estevan had them at the Naumachia.
Yeah.
So, there's a
but
lot.
no, Maki, it seemed like he was like it seemed like he didn't actually have like a physical weapon. It seemed like he was opening the gate between Obatium
Yeah.
and like using the power of the will in Obatium to kill everybody
So then
in
was
Res.
Estevan synchronous in some way, or at least exist in more than one place? Will we find Estevan somewhere else? Is Estevan Theocra in Lucium, or like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I mean, you did say before that we didn't think Esteban was actually dead yet, right? Esteban is Melior as well, right?
Yeah.
That's a yeah.
Well, I
I
think
think we
he's
had said
definitely dead in Res. I mean, he got stabbed
yeah,
in the
yeah,
face.
but like not yeah.
Well,
I don't
he killed his brain, right? It actually points out that he actually so like he made it so he can't be in a Nuktai. And so
right.
like because he would have obviously known that they can bring people back in the necropolis to like
Yeah.
give up all the
That was a
information.
true
So
sacrifice. Yeah.
exactly, which makes him like even though he's killing all these people, he seems like he's a decent dude. I think there's something with the stylus. So like your Ostius question, because they keep pointing out like at these stylus with blood, and it protected Viz in the Nelmakia, but then I wonder if that's how Ostius is able to go from
Realm
point
to
to
realm.
point, because it seems like well, because one thing I would say, like I thought it was interesting that it seemed like he had to go to a certain spot in Lucium to warp into a certain spot in Res, if that makes sense. Remember when
Yeah.
he brings, and then he's in the chamber, so it's like the clearly there's some. So I wonder if you put something of yours, like with your blood, like a stylus with your blood in one world, you can always go back to it because you can pull yourself to where your will is, if that makes sense. But he can't do it to Lucium because or
Or
Obatium because the gate's closed.
right.
I don't know what that means, but like, but I wonder if then Viz is going to be able to do it to all
So
three
the
of
other
them.
thing is, so these ruins are different, right? So they take him to the necropolis, which is just like necro, dead, polis city. Like we should have seen that coming, right? The dead city. So at the necropolis is where all of the Yunctus are that he can pull the will from and create the zombie army. But those are different than all of the people who are like have the obsidian spears through them in the ruins that he's seen on Salavarga. So then the question is like, who made each one? Because it seems like the necropolis is a weapon to be used against the concurrents, whereas the other ones seem like they are maybe ruins from from the concurrence. It's just I just don't understand all of that because it seems like the Yunctus are tools of the concurrence, and yet Vis in Res is using that tool to seed to himself, right? So it's I don't know. There's lots of questions.
Yeah, it could be that Viz imbuing the Inuktai in the necropolis is actually what is creating the concurrence, because it's like an inner, because it even says like they will, once you imbue in the first three, they'll do it all themselves. You don't even have to
Right.
do anything, which is what we kind of see in the concurrence. They
Right.
operate on a complex system that really doesn't require you anymore, as long as that person stays alive, which is why I think they
Yeah.
kept Ka alive in Obatium. As long as that initial person who imbues the three people is still alive and still synchronous in the three worlds, the concurrence will continue to go. I just think
Right.
it's one in Obatium, it's lost in Lucium, and Res is still up for grabs. If that makes sense. So I actually think like items like "Don't do this thing" is kind of a prophetic warning of like you've now unleashed the concurrence on,
Yeah.
and
At
you're the
Res.
linchpin of how the concurrence is alive, and like you screwed up, bud.
Ooh,
Like
that's interesting because if you
That's what
think about
yep.
Obatium, it's essentially everybody is dead except Ka, who they
yeah,
keep prisoner so that they can continue to live off the imbued will of him. So now
Mhm.
what Vis has started is like that's actually the cleansing, because that army is going to go and kill everybody in Res so that they become like Obati. Oh, that's interesting.
which
Yep.
which
I
would which would be hilariously crazy in if that's true. One of two things would either have to happen. Viz would actually have to try to fight the army he just created, which would be like, that's weird. Or the guy we hate that just killed Equa, who's like for sure going to be opposed to this no matter what, right? Might actually become the good army leader in in Res, because
That'd be
he's
terrible.
trying to fight Viz, even though we're getting the perspective of Viz, but we know Viz has done a stupid thing. Like,
I don't care
wouldn't
what
that
he
flip the
does.
paradigm?
I'm never cheering for him. Yeah, I will
But
never forgive him for Equa.
I think the thing in Res that we also like, something has to happen with Lannistia, Alkistor, and Verdus. Like that
Yeah.
has to come to a conclusion. So like I actually wonder, like I think Nate and you and I talked about this, like I actually wonder if they become the enemies of Viz. Like if they're like, you are crazy, and it might be that they find Reliquia in the Sapper, and Reliquia is like, Viz left me here. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden they start to be like, so neither of you guys read like the New Jedi Order or any of the like. So this story, like, we talked about Anakin, but the story of Jason Solo in the Star Wars novels, this is far more Jason Solo. Like it was like he started to take things, and nobody could see the bad steps he was taking until they basically witnessed something he did, and then all of a sudden they were just like, wait, this guy's the villain. Like this
Mhm.
is, and like even though Jason the whole time, thought he was a good guy. Like even at the end when he died, he's like, I'm the good guy. You know what I mean? Like, so I wonder if he's actually doing a little bit of that. Like, sorry, we're just making theories up as we go here. So
No, that's good.
yeah, yeah. But Ostius, I don't have an answer. I would like to talk to the guy and get an answer to that question. Because it seems like he only exists in one world. Like it seems like there's no clones of him, if that makes sense.
Well, maybe that's how he can go. Well, I mean, I guess I was just thinking that's how he can go between worlds, but Resvis went to Lyceum as well, so he can't exist in both. He can have multiple copies of himself in each world simultaneously.
Yeah. Good. It's good.
Couple things, just notable scenes that I think are worth bringing up. Well, one of them is Lannistia at the Aurora Colony, where she wants to. So who's
Complete the
controlling?
journey, traveler.
Yeah, like who's controlling her then? Because she's trying to kill this. Like she goes on just like the most epic slaughtering spree, which like nobody can stop her, which was crazy. But then, so who is that? Ka controlling her? Like who's actually like she said she was acting out of like not that wasn't her doing it. Like it was, but something was compelling her to do it. So who has the ability? Is that Ka? And did Ka want him to die, or like that's like thing I'm not totally sure about.
Yeah, I don't
I
know
think
either.
Cod definitely. Sorry, Nate. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go for it.
I said I think Cod definitely was trying to kill Viz until that scene at the end. Once he actually after Viz had killed Ka in the other world. And so I think Lannistia was like she made it through the gate. I don't know how she survived in Res, like to be honest with you, but like I think like all of those guardians. I think there's lots of Inuktai out there, or that Ka had set up as like safe guardians. Like I don't understand the phrase "complete the journey, warrior" though. Like that part I don't really have, but I think Ka is definitely the one that's imbued or keeping Lannistia alive because I think she's an Inuktai. Like I don't think
But
we.
it says that she's not, because I like he immediately makes it seem like that because her eyes look the same as the Youngties or Young guys. But then is it Amisa who then goes on to say it's like, oh no, they like because Vis asks that or thinks it, and then she corrects it and says, no, they already checked her blood. There's something in the blood. So she's not. But it's just strange how she has the same issue where her eyes are completely out of her head.
And I
So
think that would create problems, right? Like she eats, she sleeps,
yeah, yeah,
right? So,
Yeah, good point. Good point.
yeah,
yeah.
so like that would
Yeah.
create problems if that was a
So it's
big
like
reveal,
was yeah, it makes you wonder if there's like the process started or something and then it stopped and so she didn't fully
right? Like
die. So
Viridius
there's
found her.
yeah, like
Yeah.
there's something that prevented it from fully taking over or her fully dying.
Hmm.
But that's I mean, and you do interestingly, you start to see in this one some of those older characters definitely take a back seat. I mean, you definitely don't get Okiscore much. You don't get Lannistia as much, which is too bad because I wish we got more of those characters. I think that's maybe one knock against the book is I thought they were really interesting, but you do see Okiscore actually do show real affection for Vis. Like it's not, yes, he even admits that he was definitely motivated by the desire to find out what happened to his brother, pushed Vis to do um the labyrinth, but then he actually seems to have affection, which I think is kind of cool to see. So I am curious to see where those characters do go. But the one character that I thought was I think just worth bringing up a little bit more, Nate, you already mentioned her as Netocrat because like what a twisted thing that she does. So she's this assassin for the wealthy who have desires for certain people and they want those people. So she kills them cleanly so they still look pretty so that they can then just be their slave. And it's like, you know what? If that was a thing in our world, people would absolutely do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's sort of like when you're reading That Hideous Strength and you see that like Lewis saw where the depravity was going, and he's talking about having sex with mechanical objects and things like that, which is that now happens. And it's like Islington is seeing, he's almost seeing how depraved man is, and if they had that ability, absolutely they would. Yeah, there'd be a totally black market. It's honestly, it's not unlike like child trafficking, that goes on in the world around now, right? So, yeah, no, that's and the fact that Vis sort of aligns with her, and I actually thought that they kind of tried to make her a sympathetic character by the end with everything that happened to her daughter. So I really hope that there isn't necessarily redemption for her, because I don't think you can come back from that. Because that her like the sympathy for Netocret didn't land on me at the end. I was like, okay, I get it. I love my daughter too, but there are lines, right? And that's
Yeah.
Aiden's whole thing. You have to have lines. You will always cross your lines. If you don't name the hill you're going to die on, every hill becomes a hill not to die on. And I think that's a warning that we're seeing in the book, like over and over again. And even like, it's interesting because there was the scene with Vis and Aiden was a really telling one, where Aiden is like his most loyal friend, and when Vis is like confessing to him, and she's like, and I've been working with the Anguis, and I did this, and I did this, and it's just like, so is that his sort of his confession and repentance moment, and or is that just like, because when he was listing all that stuff, I'm like, man, I don't know. I don't think I'd forgive you. Like, you've done a lot of terrible things. So is that the, like, we're seeing the descent of this, or are we seeing that's like, because Aiden, he doesn't actually say that he forgives him, but he does say like, I'm still with you or whatever. I think he says something like, I haven't forgiven you yet, or we still need to talk about it. I can't remember how he says it, but that is interesting. Like, all these things that have been justified to us because we're reading everything from Vis's perspective, when it's all listed together, you're like, jeepers, like, you're not a good guy.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I was thinking about this when we were talking about, like, this might have to do the ultimate sacrifice. The one thing that Ka couldn't do is, like, lay down his power,
Yeah,
but we've already seen that Vis won't do that, right? Like, so he allowed, like, he allowed the Anguish to, like, run him because he was too afraid of his actual secret, which is actually he's too afraid of being killed, right? Like,
right.
because he could have just said, I'm not doing it," like,
Yeah,
and do what you would, like, kinda call the bluff, like, "Kill me then." You know what I mean? Like, or reveal me. But he's not willing to do that, like, and so it's like that this interesting thing of like, well, will he actually lay down his stuff at the end? Because like, one of the cool things about the book is, like, we read Viz's perspective, so we understand his motivation for, like, kinda going along with the Anguish, but, like, he's also a traitor, like,
yeah,
the whole time, like, he's betraying his friends, like, he's working with the people who did the Eutychium, like, so, like, he's on the like, we know he doesn't want to be, but he's on their side, like,
right.
and so there is this thing of, like, is how responsible is Viz for a lot of the stuff that's happened? Maybe not directly, but, like, as an accomplice, as, like, because he could have just kinda outed Reliquia, you know what I mean? Like, "Hey, Keystar, she knows who I am, here's who I am, this is," but he won't do that, right? Like, and so it's just this interesting, like, thing, like, because I remember when he had that conversation with Aiden, I was like, I had forgotten that, like, at that point at the book, because it's not a big thing in this book, that I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he's not only is he a traitor to the hierarchy because he's wanted as a fugitive for being the Prince of Sus,
He's
but he's also a traitor
Carnifax.
because he's fighting the UDK, like, he's on the Anguish side, like, he did murder everybody in military, which, like, was like, this is not a good guy at this point.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
um, yeah, so, like, but Carnifex, like, how sick is that? He's Magneto. Like,
Okay. So we got to talk about his arm. I know, Nate, that was a big thing. A lot of people were really upset that he didn't have an arm, but now we see one in in Res. Vis is able to now fabricate an arm out of like the metal, which is pretty sweet. But then also he's Silverhand
yeah,
in the Kiyum. So it's like now he's got a pretty cool arm.
yeah, he's
yeah.
got a
I
badass
love
guy.
the part where he puts it up and blocks Galkavar's swing, and it even says like, I didn't even move. Like,
Mhm.
this big strong warrior who's imbuing
Yeah.
swings his spear, and he just blocks it, and he's like, I didn't even move. Like, that didn't even hurt. That's pretty sick.
Yeah, I didn't like I don't like, maybe I'm just, weirdly biased or whatever. I don't like dismembered characters, like, it always just feels weird to me if somebody's got, like, no arm or anything like that, like, um, but Like, I love the, like I was literally cheering when he comes out of the water with the arm on, and it's like and it feels normal to him. I'm like,
Yeah.
because like, now I wanna
He's
see him
back.
fight Terra because now he's got 2 arms. Like, so let's see
Yeah.
who really wins. Yeah. So
Which real quick before we wrap up, we've been going for a little while here, but real quick, which world did you find you enjoyed the most overall?
Mm. I think this is one of the strengths of the book is it fluctuated.
Mm,
Early on, I was like, man, Obitium is the place of nightmares. I need a break from it, but
yep.
it's kind of what I'm most interested in. And part of that was because of how much I loved Siror's character, and Lucium was kind of the boring place. And I know some of our friends were just like, man, like stop like just trying to live a normal life on a farmstead. But part of me is just like, man, you deserve this. Like just chill for a little bit. You know what I mean? Like take a wife and some kids and, have a few more little rugrats of your own and just enjoy the farmstead, bro. But then interestingly, like when he's wandering around the city, like, figuring out a way to get in to see Ka, I'm like, man, this is now kind of not dragging. I didn't find it wasn't like those scenes in what's the cognitive realm in the Cosmere?
Uh,
Shadesmar.
Shadesmar.
Shadesmar. Yeah, it wasn't like the Shadesmar chapters that just dragged on, but it was sort of like, okay, get me back to Lucium now because I'm loving this. So it shifted back and forth. And then there's the nostalgia of like, I love the relationship with Equa. I love the relationship with Aiden. So you see, and I wanted more Alkiskor and Lanastia, even though they weren't in it much. So like, it just shifted throughout the book, and there were different times where I was invested more in the various stories. So I thought he did a good job that way. But as this book ends, Lucium is my favorite spot.
Mm,
And I wonder how much that's tied to who Viz is currently in Lucium. Like,
I'm sure it
in
is.
terms like
Yeah.
he's still the moral, like he's so I wonder
yep.
if like we're resonating with him because he's actually the character we've been with the whole time,
Right.
if that makes sense. Because I would probably even say it the exact same way. Like I at the beginning of the book, I was like basically when Seor was with Viz, I was like, when is the next OBTM chapter? Like, trying to find this is my like flipping pages kind of thing, no motion. But I was all about OBTM. And I was like, the idea of like having to break into this thing to kill this god emperor kind of thing. I was like, I am here for this. But as soon as he kind of got into the city, I was like, I'm bored. I don't care. Like the dancing thing, I was like, probably the weakest thing in the book was like,
Yeah.
It's
like
just 3 weeks of learning how to dance naked is a little
Yeah.
much.
when she could just buy like it just proved that she just bought all the everybody off anyway. So it's like, well,
Yeah.
why don't you just do that? Like,
Yeah.
and so it's just like it's just that part. Like I just hated that part, and I don't think he did. Even though I think this is a 5-star book, don't get me wrong. There needed to be far more far more like peril of him just living in the city. Like
Mm,
Yeah, he didn't get into
it,
trouble much.
no, like it seemed like he was fine. He learned right away how to walk through the labyrinth of the city, which I thought was cool. Like the city, you actually have to even navigate it like a labyrinth,
Yeah.
and I was like, that's neat. But then like he's got a
And I wasn't
fugitive.
invested in Amos. Did either of you guys
No,
like Amos? Like
not
when
at
he
all.
died, I didn't care.
yeah.
It would have made way more sense if it was Theor came into the
Yeah.
city with him.
Right.
And then even when he gets out of the city, which I thought was a cool scene, like he goes through the water and he like finds the filtering dead bodies, which is like
Which is
okay.
nasty.
But then he goes back to the temple and it's not for Seor. It's for a weapon. And it's like Viz would find Seor in like in every other like in the book one, he would have went and found Seor first. You know what I mean? And brought him and made sure he was okay. And OBT and Viz just didn't care. And then we get so I liked OBT to start. Res kind of was neutral the whole time. It was kind of always the second favorite place to be. And then like Lucium, I was bored out of my mind until literally until he went to the before the king.
The
And then
Academy.
it picked up. I actually thought they were what I actually thought was gonna happen with Lucium. I actually thought they were gonna let him stay on the farm and kind of do a thing where he like years pass in Lucium before he actually has to become who he is, and he's like an old man, like kind of thing. And but they didn't. But I was Lucium grew on me. Right now, I would say like I'm most invested in what's happening in Probably in res, but like Lucium right there. Obitium, I don't even know how they're gonna bring it back. Like, so
What
how
we
about you,
really
Jordan?
wanted was for Lucium Vis just to become Tom Bombadil. Like, just go, you find your river daughter and just settle in and take Dominion, bro.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I think out of all of them, the one I'm most interested to get back to is Rez. Like, that's the one where, okay, what in the world is going to happen? I mean, all of them, really, all of them. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to. I found myself like, yeah, originally Lucium I thought was a little bit boring. Obitium was just like this hellscape that I thought was like really interesting. How, I mean, just how terrified, or at least, I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be curious. It'll be interesting to know whether Siror is a Yangtai there because he tells him that he should be afraid of them. But I guess we don't really know if he himself is afraid of them because if he is one of them, then he's not as afraid of them. But just like that was very uncomfortable. But then, yeah, I think there's just like the nostalgia of like Catan and just the world that we were spent so much time in there. So yeah, I think it's hard to say. I think they all have their strengths. But
Can
so
can
before we
can
wrap, oh
can an
no, if you have
Inuktai use will? Can you remind me?
no,
Okay,
they're
so
they're like
They can be imbued with will, but I don't think they can use their own.
yeah,
all right, so
yeah,
because we know Rurik can use will because he's a druid.
mm,
So that would have to mean that Seor is a Inuktai in Obitium because the very first conversation he has with Viz is he says, "I knew I died because I could feel part of me die immediately in res, and then a few weeks later I felt another part of me die." Now that's the Seor in Obitium
But
saying
that's
that.
also subjective. Like, who knows what he was experiencing,
That
right?
is actually
yeah,
true.
Because Cod does tell this that sometimes what happens to your other characters bleeds through. So,
yeah,
like, he might have interpreted that as his copy dying, but it might have just been he was getting tortured or he
Oh yeah,
experienced
yeah,
great loss or whatever, right?
yeah,
Like, you don't
and we do
know.
see that because he writes on the arm, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
okay,
yeah.
that
Well,
actually maybe that means Seor is an Inuktai in one of the worlds.
Yeah, he might not be, but
Like,
obviously they wanted different things. So again, maybe that's just Islington showing us that different environments, different people, different
yeah,
instructions,
yeah.
different
yeah,
information has you going on different trajectories. Because Siror in Obitium is who sent. He wanted Ka dead, whereas obviously in Lucium he didn't want him dead. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's good, Nate. I like that.
So before we wrap up, how would you guys rate Strength of the Few out of 5? Chris?
I think it's a 5-star book. I've read a lot of fantasy, and there's not much. There's books that are better, but this is in the conversation with those books. You know what I mean? So, I think it's great. I don't rank series really until they're finished because if he lays an egg in book 3, then
Yeah.
it kind of taints book 2. But like, I kind of look at this um like this entry could be the two towers of a kind of series where I'm like, that's the strongest point.
Yeah.
This is the Empire Strikes Back kind of thing. Like
Yeah.
it's that good of a book. Like, and I know like if you're still listening to this, you probably already read it, but like, you know, no sex, no real swearing. Like
Vec.
your boys could read this when they're 15 or 16. And other than
Yep.
like some gore, which yeah, I'm a little more desensitized to than I think Nate is. You're a better person than I am, but like I don't have a problem recommending this to people in our church. Hey, you should read this book. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Whereas like there are many books that even I've read that I'm like, nah. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
so I really liked
and
it. So
and
5 for me.
opportunities for them, right? So like we've talked about how deplorable the city is in Obitium and the depravity and Netocret's job, and yet he does it all without eliciting any thoughts or visuals in you. Even when we talk about what's his face dancing naked, like it's kind of like it doesn't ever get lewd. It doesn't ever get questionable. It doesn't ever evoke like Jordan. You and I were even talking about like Michael Heiser's fiction, where there's just certain things that he describes in a way that's making me picture things that I shouldn't be picturing. And so I find that Islington doesn't do that at all. There was the
Yep.
opportunity in book 1 for Amisa and Vis to get a little bit frisky, and they don't. Like it is clean in that way. There's a lot of violence, but it's it's telling us a story, I think, that's worth hearing, and it's not tainting it with even in the Cosmere, right, where you have some gay characters and you have you have all the crap that happens in Wind and Truth that I'm wading through right now. But it's yeah, it's definitely clean that way. So you asked, I would have said before this conversation, I would have given like Will of the Many maybe a 4 and Strength of the Few a 4.5. But I feel like after talking about it, I got to give it a 5 too. Like it's just like this conversation has been really enjoyable and almost makes me want to just go back and reread it because
I probably
yeah. So we'll see.
yeah.
Better than Wind and Truth, I'll tell you that.
Well, I think that's what makes this book land so much better for me is the excitement of Wind and Truth and how much of a letdown that was. And it's just like, dang it, we were like, I mean, I read so much of the Cosmere to get ready for Wind and Truth. I loved so much of it. Rhythm of War is where it started to be like, not sure about this. It's still okay. And then Wind and Truth just really didn't land. So then to have this book where we've been talking about it, we've been excited about it for 6 to 9 months, maybe, Chris, something like that, where we've been like we've been waiting for this book, knowing that it was coming out, and then to enjoy it as much as I did, to still be as interested in the characters. He introduced new characters. I mean, he pulled off something that is very challenging, which is 3 perspectives, and to make all 3 worlds and storylines interesting and compelling. And so I have to give it a 5. I really do. I really enjoyed it. I would have given Will of the Many a 5. So as of right now,
I
I'm
did
fine.
too.
Yeah, like I have no issues saying 5 stars, and just because I mean, Chris and I read more fantasy than you do, Nate.
Yep.
And so I've read a lot of fantasy over the last 2 years, just getting back into it. And like this is so good compared to some of the other ones. I mean, Abercrombie's really good in his own way. Actually, I think I might enjoy Abercrombie's his writing better just because he actually weaves in humor really well. Like Abercrombie, that's what this book doesn't have a lot of humor. Like it's not really that funny. Maybe there's like the odd little thing here and there, but I think Abercrombie, even in like a grimdark world, still like he makes it funny, and which is just when you're reading, I enjoy kind of interspersed humor like that. But overall, loved it. I would still tell anybody I mean, if you're listening to this, shame on you if you have not read any of it. You've ruined it. Don't let us do that. But yeah, I'm excited for the next one. I think one thing that we need to be thinking of, and where this show and the Christians who are reading this, I think we have to think of some of this stuff more through a theological lens, because he is a Christian, he is a Reformed Christian, and so some of the theory crafting that we were saying a lot of fans do, non-Christians won't have a lens to see some of those hidden meanings or those undertones or those big thematic things. So I think we maybe even could lean further into some of that, like the sin and just like
Redemption
some of
and
those redemption, and even like like, is he maybe, when we talk about, or like the conversation of the dichotomous or trichotomous, right? Where it's like, there's that aspect of our nature as human beings that is it getting into something like that with this in some way, spiritual realm. Like there's just all these things that a non-Christian's not going to think about. And so I think as we continue to talk about this, I think we'll probably be able to develop maybe even some better theories for book 3 once that time comes. So hopefully, listeners, I'm going to be trying. I did reach out to Islington about a year ago, and maybe not quite a year ago, and his publicist had said like, "Hey, reach out again in the fall. We'll see if we can." So I'm going to see if we can get him on here, because that would be really fun, and I would love to talk to him. So that's in the works. I'm going to see what I can do about that, because it would be great to talk to him and kind of. I know he's not going to give us anything for the next book, but maybe just even seeing what his thinking is and stuff might be interesting to help us plan some stuff. So, anyways, this was one of our longer episodes, but that's okay. I figured this was going to happen. I mean, we could still keep going. I've got other things here that we didn't even talk about, but that's okay, because we got to wrap this up. But gents, is there anything else, any parting words that you want to leave before we put a pin in this?
no.
Nope.
Read good fiction and talk about it with good people.
Yeah, sir.
Seriously, that's why we're starting as the church, church archivist. We're going to be doing a fantasy, library man. I'm going with archivist. It'd be way less weird me wearing a cloak if I'm the archivist. If I'm just the library man and I'm walking around in a cloak, people are going to be
You
like,
have to
"Well, that's
say
weird."
it right though. It's the librarian.
Well, it's not the library man. It's the archivist. Anyways, we're going to be doing, because this has been a lot of fun, and I think a lot of people at church have enjoyed doing this, and so we're going to try to do this as a book club and we got to talk about what we want to do next, because I actually would maybe lean towards Lycanius, because I think, one, to support Islington. I think it'd be good for people to buy his book. I think it'd be great to be able to support him. I've heard it's really good. Anyways, well, that's something we're going to talk about, and even with our Discord. So if you're not a patron, go check us out over there, and you can join our Discord through Patreon. And we are talking about this, and we're actually going to do, once more people finish, because I think there's a few people who haven't quite finished yet. We're going to do just a big group discussion similar to what we did right here, just to talk about all of this, because we have a lot of people on there who are reading it and enjoying it. So that'll be really fun. And but okay. Well, gents, I think that's it. Listeners, thank you for sticking around if you did for this whole thing. Yeah, and until next time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
No, thanks for yes, and thank you, Chris. Thank you for joining us, and listeners.
He's on more than Ben at this point, so I mean, is it really a guest appearance?
That's why I shaved my head so that I looked like him, just to give people some comfort.
Nate, huh?
When God blesses you, you don't. You don't.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. I can grow long hair. It's just I hate it. Anyways. That's not. Yeah. Anyways. Well, listeners. Finally, in closing, until next time, stay nerdy.